Ooh, thought I ran you over. Well, I just got back from my first test drive and couldn't ask for much more. I had one issue with the breaker for the fan. It kept popping. So I've got the dash pulled apart right now. The rock lights weren't working either. And I found out that that green wire right there was pulled out of its connector. So I got that fixed. They are working now. Not that I needed them today. I spent maybe a couple hours driving this thing at Prairie City. Definitely a fun couple hours getting used to this thing. I have so many hours driving my dad's F-Toy, very similar to this. This just took a little while to get used to the shifting and the brakes and the clutch, and yeah, super stoked. I was playing with tire pressure while I was there. Believe it or not, these are at 7.5 PSI. And they're hardly even moving. Probably because they're race tires, so I think they have like a heavier sidewall. I don't know, someone might know better than I do. So I think I could go lower on these and get a little bit more traction. So as for the fan breaker, I don't know how to test a breaker to see if it's working right or not. I really don't even know how to test the circuit to see why the breaker would be popping. So I think I'll just pull it out, and there's a couple things I could do. I have some breakers that aren't being used, some circuits that are open on this setup, so I could just swap another breaker into the position that the fan uses and then go test again and see if that works. Because the fan works fine when the breaker is in, but then randomly the breaker would pop, and it's impossible to see that until I look down at the temperature gauge and I see that I'm about to overheat. And then I shut off the engine and I could hear that the fan wasn't running. And then I look over and see that the breaker's popped. So got to do some head scratching on that. What else? The steering was great. This is the most time I've ever spent driving a rig with full hydraulic steering, and it is so amazing. Just one finger, left, right, wherever you want to go. One major difference I noticed between this and my dad's rig is that it feels like the gearing is a little taller on this rig. Either that or there's like less bottom end. Like if I'm in the lowest gear in first gear and I go up to a ledge, instead of the engine just continuing to spin, it's almost like I have to give it gas. So I think I can just handle that through a little different technique with the throttle, but I won't know what gearing is in this thing until I pull if and when I pull the transfer case apart. The stereo worked great. I had a couple people come by and check out the rig and tell me how cool it was, so that was fun. My modified sway bars worked okay. Well, they didn't bend, so that's good. But the packaging down here is really tight, and you can see there's a misalignment on the upright, so it's bending the tab that it's mounted to. So this whole little area needs to kind of be reworked. That's probably a problem for another day though. And then the other thing I noticed, and this will come as no surprise, if we look down this edge, note where that vertical bar is on the tread. I'd say it's about halfway through that inner lug. And we come over here and look where the bar is. It's almost outside of the tire. So this rear axle is over to the left, just like the front end was, about an inch. So that would explain why this bump stop isn't really centered under its pad. And then this one's bent. So it's really close to the edge. So I think I'll rig up my top secret axle alignment tool and see if I can get some measurements of where this rear axle is sitting. I didn't notice, I did a couple laps just on dirt roads. I didn't notice any kind of weird driving, but yeah, so I'm gonna move some breakers around, get a part number, see if I can get a couple new ones of those, because I don't care really if my lights stop working or stereo stops working, but we can't afford to have the fan stop working. So that's got to be bulletproof.